You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Happy Thursday. Welcome to a special crossover between Locked On Penguins and Locked On Kings, as this will be their first of two matchups this year. Of course, the Penguins are in Los Angeles this time, and for the first time, I'm not calling it the Staples Center. It is a brand new arena now. For whatever reason, they decided to change the name.
No, you can keep calling it Staples Center.
I'm going to keep calling it that just because that's where the Lakers have played for a long time, and same for the Kings.
Yeah.
We have Sarah here from Locked On Kings, and Sarah, I think it's definitely going to be emotional for you tomorrow. We'll just get right into it. The return of Jeff Carter. He spoke a lot today to the Kings and Penguins media saying, he spoke on Wednesday. Of course, we're taping this on Wednesday night. It's coming out Thursday. My fault on that. But, spoke a lot today saying he was hoping he would retire a King. It's, bittersweet to come back, and he's really happy that how things have gone in Pittsburgh. But, there's definitely, I think, going to be a pretty big tribute to Big Jeff Carter is what the Penguins fans call him now, at least the Yinzers. So just what are your thoughts going into that with, seeing Carter for the first time back?
I mean, first off, I love how this Big Jeff Carter thing, I have no idea where it originated. It just happened, and God bless him. I love it. It cracks me up every single time. It's going to be an emotional night. Of the players who have left, who were part of that core Stanley Cup team, he is probably the one that everyone thought was least likely to get traded. He to the point where there were rumors where if Jeff Carter gets traded, he's just going to retire. He's not going to report, whatever. So everyone knew he wanted to stay in LA. So the Kings do a pretty good job whenever they welcome back former players, and I've both on purpose and accidentally had the opportunity. I've been there when Mike Richards and Justin Williams came back. I've been there when Tyler Toffoli first came back this year with Montreal, and Kings fans are very appreciative of those guys and what they did for the team. And Jeff Carter's always been a fan favorite. You still can go into, don't call it Staples Center, and see Jeff Carter jerseys everywhere. And it's definitely going to be the case for this game.
Yeah, I mean, and he's been playing some pretty good hockey this year.
Mm-hmm.
He just came off the COVID list. Of course, scores against Jason's Ducks last night. First opening goal in the first opening minute, I should say. Came off a lousy performance against the Stars, but he'd been on the COVID list for a week.
Yeah,
unexpected. But before then, Sarah, I mean, he wasn't ever going to play at the pace we saw last year when he had basically a point per game, and this was 2012 version of Jeff Carter when he was first coming over from Philadelphia. But this season, 11 goals, 20 points in 30-something games. Just he's the perfect complement to both Crosby and Malkin. They had been searching for a third-line center to replace Nick Bonino for quite a long time, and they've gotten that and then some out of him. And they're going to see him on a line with another familiar face. Evgeny Malkin will be centering him just because there's 5 or 6 players on COVID protocol.
Right.
But just to get into the Kings a little bit, I've noticed there's a little slow start, but they've started to creep up a little bit. I said, honestly, this year, one of my bold predictions was that they were going to be a playoff team. I liked what they did in the offseason. This was the year that they were kind of going to go for it a little bit because the Pacific Division is not that good. I don't think it still is. Last I checked, they're in third. Just, what are your overall thoughts, with the Kings this year?
So it really has been kind of a tale of two Kings, and the biggest frustration with them is that you never 100% know which team you're getting on any given night. But as opposed to previous seasons, this year, it kind of seems like they have one really bad game. They had a real stinker against Vegas the other day, and then they bounced back very quickly from it. And it sort of galvanized the team to be like, oh, no, we have to play the right way. So as opposed to previous seasons where they'd lose one game and then it's just be a spiral of then they lose 6 or 7 in a row. This year, it seems like they're bouncing back a lot more. Younger guys are getting the opportunity to play. We're seeing the team actually being ready from puck drop, which is not always a thing that we have seen. The readiness to play has been a big issue for this team. Talk about that goal scored against the Ducks in the first minute. I had a whole Twitter thread once of like, did the Kings get scored on in the first minute of this game? Yes, no. And the answer was usually yes. And we're not seeing that as much this season. So yeah, like right now they're in third place. Looking at the teams below them, Calgary and Edmonton are the two most likely ones to jump up. Edmonton maybe is in a free. Who knows what Edmonton's doing? But that picture of a path to the playoffs, if the Kings keep playing the way they are, is getting a little bit more like, oh, this could actually happen this year.
Yeah, no, I mean, and they made the big moves of the offseason. Victor Arvidsson going there.
Mm-hmm.
They got I almost forgot his name for a sec. Philip Deneau, of course, in Montreal. That was a nice 1-2 punch with him and Kopitar. Kings really needed just another center, I think, to take some big minutes away from him as Kopitar starts to age. But this season, Kopitar's been good, almost a point per game. It's almost even though he ages, he's still ridiculously underrated.
Yeah.
I think your leading goal scorer is Kempe this season with 16. 22 points in 36 games. I don't think I saw that coming this quick because he's going to be.
No one did.
Yeah. I was going to get your thoughts on that. Did anyone in the Kings fan base see a breakout like this?
No. Everyone in the Kings fan base has been trying to trade Adrian Kempe for spare parts for the past couple of seasons because he has promise, and that's what's always been frustrating about him as a player is that he was drafted, I think, like the last pick of the first round in his draft year, but still first round draft pick. And had that pedigree of what you expect from a player there, and just never at the NHL level really put it all together. He'd go in bunches where he'd score, 4 goals in 4 games and then not score for 20 games. And so he was frustratingly streaky. And we're like, well, he is what he is. At this point, that's just the player that he is. And this year, he seems like he's finally gotten it all together. And is now getting the opportunity to play on a line with Kopitar, which I think is really helping him. But yeah, no one saw that coming. It's a very pleasant surprise from a player who we have wanted more from for a long time.
I'd be curious to see how his shooting percentage is with those 16 goals in 30-something games. I'll be curious if there's like an outlier or if this is like it looks legit. It sounds like,
right,
based on how you're talking, it's deserved with how he's been playing to start the season. Another player that has kind of this is interesting, Sarah. When did Jonathan Quick become a top 4 or 5 goalie in the NHL again? Because this is 16.4 goals saved above expected, 9.1 save percentage, 2.4 goals against average. I mean, this is a player that, I think a lot of people that, on hockey Twitter and stuff, we like to take jabs at the Kings Twitter for making that weird, what the tweet I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
Years or whatever. And it was looking bad for the previous 3 or 4 seasons. And then all of a sudden just comes down and has a renaissance here. It looked like that, Cal Peterson was going to replace him and be the full-time starter. There was even, I think, trade rumors over the offseason. Just what has been different with Jonathan Quick this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's a question for the ages. No one expected Adrian Kempe to come in and actually have a complete game. No one expected Jonathan Quick to bounce back like this. I know he had like an off-season surgery, I think addressed a shoulder issue, but that doesn't revolutionize your entire game. So what got into him? No idea. But it's great for the team because, as you noted, Cal Peterson has been kind of the guy that he just signed a big deal over the summer. He's the, goalie of the future for the team. And he's struggled this season and, don't entirely know why, whether it's just, the pressure of, suddenly this really is my team to take over and I can't do it, or, what was going on with him. But, he seems to be back on track now, but if Jonathan Quick wasn't performing at the level that he's performing at, the Kings would be down there with, the Kraken and just in the basement. He has absolutely stolen games. He has looked like he's turned back the clock to Jonathan Quick of old. And it's amazing to watch. And it, I think, is creating an interesting conundrum for Kings fans and for the front office, who everyone was prepared to be like, all right, he's winding down, like, final few years of his contract, and we're going to hand things over to the next guy. And Jonathan Quick was like, Michael Jordan meme. I took that personally. Like, he has no interest in going quietly.
Yeah, I mean, he probably heard all the rumors with trades and stuff, and Cal Peterson's like, all right, I'm just gonna take over games, and they're only 4 points out of second place. That just goes to like the Pacific Division this year again. It's just, I think it's Vegas, and then it's everyone else, just so far, at least in the first almost half of the year.
Yeah.
But I assume the Penguins will see Jonathan Quick on Thursday night at 10:30 p.m. Eastern time. The Penguins themselves have a great goalie that you'll be seeing as well. We're going to get to that, coming up here in the next segment, though. All right, so we are back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins and the Locked On Kings podcast. Sarah, you told me this many times. Have you been getting texts from your family in Pittsburgh watching Tristan Jarry and everything? Because this is another goaltender that he's been on a tear this season, especially after what happened in the playoffs. Top 10 in goals saved above expected as well. He's a little below Jonathan Quick, but he has stolen games for the Penguins. And it's a 180 from what we all saw last May when he couldn't even stop a puck from the center, the red line. Has that been happening? Because I know you said you have had family in Pittsburgh. So
Anytime my mom checks in with me on anything, especially if there's a game going on, sometimes we'll be watching it, and she texts. She's like, "Did you just see that thing Sidney Crosby did? Like, did you see Jake Gensel? Look at that!" So I definitely still get the texts from home about like, "Oh, the Pens had another really good game." My mom knows that I'm out in LA to go see this game, and she's like, "Well, like, I hope the Penguins win. Hope Jeff Carter gets a goal." I'm like, "All right, thanks, Mom." But yeah, I definitely still get updates back from the Berg. All about what's going on with the team. And yeah, Tristan Jarry, like you mentioned, like that was, I mean, people were calling for him to not just be like traded, but like yeeted into the sun. Like people were done with him. And he as much as Jonathan Quick has turned it around, what do you think is behind Tristan Jarry suddenly, returning his game to what we had, Penguins fans had hoped it would be?
He also did the Michael Jordan. I took that personally. Both did that, but I think it's a combination of having a new goalie coach in Andy Chiodo work out some kinks in his game, and just a lot more aggressive this season. I think he's actually challenging shooters. If you're in the playoffs, when I would watch him, he was a lot more just laid back. He would sit back in the net, not really come out to challenge, and just wait for shooters to make it. This time he's actually coming out and he's daring shooters to, beat him. And, he's another big reason why the penalty kill has been so good this year. Last season, he was towards the bottom of the league in save percentage on the PK. This year, he's one of the best. And, usually when a goalie is good on the PK, the four skaters in front of him are doing a really good job as well. It goes hand in hand. But it's just a combination of a lot of things. And, the redemption story, it's still being written. We want to see this happen in the playoffs, but the way he's going right now and with how deep this team can be, Sarah, I really don't think there are a lot of teams in the league that can take down this team 4 out of 7 times with how, the forward depth, I think, is top 5 in the NHL. The defense this year is finally playing good. That's not been the case for recent years with Jack Johnson and a couple other players down there, even Mike Matheson, but he's actually having a good year, which I do not see coming. But there's just a lot of it's a fun team to watch too. I think the Penguins, that's the best way. I think like they make any team just work their tails off, because they come at you in waves.
Yeah. I feel like I watched the game against the Ducks, at least parts of it, and it was just like, it was relentless. And, I know obviously that Pittsburgh is, just despite the fact that they're like lingering outside of the top 3 because your division is bonkers. Like you said, the penalty kill is amazing. Like this is a team that like everyone has been hurt all year long. Like everyone has been injured or with COVID or both. And, random guys that you've never heard of are still helping lead that team. So it's fun to watch as like for, 80 games a year. But then 2 games against the Kings, I'm like, oh, can you really not do that?
Yeah, there are a good amount of Mark Donks in the lineup right now. I mean, that's just mainly because of COVID. The only actual injured player right now is Jason Zucker, our nice Jewish boy, but he's still skating and he's on the trip, so I'm not really sure when he's coming back. But yeah, I mean, you did hit the nail on the head. They're relentless on the forecheck. When it's not one guy coming in, it's two, and then when there's not two, there's three on the penalty kill. They'll start their forecheck all the way in the defensive zone, and they will the other team's defensive zone, and it'll carry over past the red line. And it's a difficult system to play, but they do it to such an effect, and that's just one of the main reasons why this team is so good. I've said it as well. Chris Letang has been magnificent this year. Probably the best hockey I've seen him play since his 2016 run. It's crazy, honestly. I keep saying that the older he gets, the better he plays. Though I did want to ask you about, Drew Dowdy, just because he's been the Kings franchise defenseman for honestly just as long as Letang has been the Penguins franchise defenseman. How has he stacked up this season? Has there been a little bit of, a redemption for him, or is it keep going downhill a little bit?
No, I mean, I really think that he, especially when he started the season, he was playing at more than a point per game pace early in the season, and then he got injured and missed a little bit of time with a knee injury. But he's back in the lineup now, and he looks, similar to kind of the Jonathan Quick fountain of youth kind of thing. Dowdy has definitely looked a lot better than he has in previous seasons. I've seen a lot less that I want to complain about with him. It is still, the team is still going to need a new Drew Dowdy, and they have Grant Clark in the pipeline that they drafted in the last draft, who kind of fits that same sort of offensive defense profile. But yeah, they don't have another Drew Dowdy, but he hasn't looked as rough this year as he has in past years, where I've been like, oh, what are you doing, bud? That's not good. I think that he's struggled a little bit, but I don't know that I would necessarily pin it on him, and just more kind of the Kings system in general. And there are times where I think everyone is kind of trying to do too much. And Dowdy certainly throughout his career has found himself in the position of he wants to do everything all the time, and he needs to, not do that and let his defensive partner take care of stuff. But yeah, he is a player who I've certainly had a lot of time to criticize in the past for some of his performance. And he's turned it around. I think that he has been, when the team was without him, you could tell like there is a noticeable difference in the Kings defense with and without Drew Dowdy.
The same goes for Chris Letang as well. Even when he's struggling, which hasn't been the case this year, you can definitely see that the void he leaves, and for Dowdy as well. Even though he's lost step, and there's a lot of mileage on those tires.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's to say the least. That he is playing a lot better this year, just because it looked like it was a steep decline.
Yeah.
At least for a while. I do look when I look at left wing lock, I almost forgot that old friend Oli Mata, it looks like, is in the Penguins lineup, is in the Kings lineup. I dead serious when I say I totally forgot that he was on the Kings.
I think a lot of Kings fans forget that he's on the Kings. He's Oli Mata. You guys know what he brings, and especially at this point in his career, not a whole ton, which is crazy because he's still very young. This isn't like we're talking about 35-year-old, Oli Mata. He's still a younger guy, but similarly has a lot of miles on him, and he's been out several times this season. He's on the COVID list, just coming back off of that. I think he was injured earlier, so he hasn't been able to get into a consistent rhythm, and has in fact been kind of in and out of the lineup as sort of the healthy scratch. But there are times where he comes in, and he had like a huge block in a game the other day that I was like, yeah, Oli Mata, like that's what we have you here for, is making those big defensive plays. Like, please stop trying to play the puck. Like, please stop, why are you in, don't go down there. But there are still moments where you're like, oh, like this is what everyone saw in this guy. But yeah, Kings fans, A, that he is there, and B, are constantly trying to figure out ways to be like, so can we send him to the AHL? Like, does another team need him? He is not the problem with the Kings, but a lot of fans, there's always one guy on every team that people latch onto as, this is why we lost the game. Well, no, but he's occasionally the scapegoat.
That's the perfect summary of Mike Matheson here. He coughs up the puck at the dumbest moments, and everyone's just like, "Why are you doing this when you make so much money?" And then a couple weeks will go by, and it's like, "Wow, he's actually playing pretty good." Not up to the cap hit, but it's like, okay, you're in a bottom pairing role with Chad Ruedel. Just screw up when you're, even though he's a total chaos player. That guy is something else. But I am glad that Mata's always, his skating has not been his strength, but his defensive work was always pretty decent. Never really scored a lot. I think that was one of my biggest knocks on him when he was in Pittsburgh, was that he just never brought enough offense, especially when I think it was Ray Sherrill at the time that gave him a contract extension.
Yeah.
Jim. It might have been right after Jim got hired. I'm like blanking on it. It was one of the two. But he never just lived up to that. And then, he obviously he was out in the trade. But it'll still be fun to see, just him playing the Penguins again. I feel like we haven't seen Olli Maatta playing the Penguins in quite a long time. But Sarah, has there been, a player that, besides I think Kempe, that you've been impressed with that you didn't see coming this year for the Kings?
I think for me, it's the emergence of some of the young players who, it's not so much that I didn't see the performance coming. It was more, didn't see that they were going to get the opportunity because the Kings are not always great at filling their roster spots with their prospects. They've been very patient with them, which is great. But we're getting to the point where we're like, okay, come on, let's bring these guys up. And so one of the guys that has been a real treat to watch is Sean Durzy, who is a defenseman, has spent the past couple years in the AHL and got the call up. The Kings are missing, Drew Dowdy missed a big chunk of time at the beginning of the year. And Sean Walker is out for the season with, I think, ACL and MCL injury. It was bad. And then Alex Edler, who was also brought on as kind of the 6th, 7th defenseman, veteran presence guy, broke his ankle. And so he is also out now for quite some time. So there have been opportunities for the younger guys to step in on the blue line, and Sean Durzy's one of them. He's definitely young, creative, puck-moving defenseman. He's quarterbacking the power play. You want to see him creating those opportunities for the team offensively that, this is a team that historically has struggled to score, and having a defenseman back there who is not quite as risk-taking as Drew Dowdy is, but is still, thinking of how he can create plays has been really fun to see. And he has shown no signs of coming back out of the lineup. So that's a real treat to see, oh yeah, they prospect, they made it. They finally made it big. So I've really enjoyed watching him. And, I feel like it's the Quentin Byfield questions always comes up, and I would love to be standing here talking about Quentin Byfield right now, but he's still working his way back from injury. And then as soon as he got back from the injury, he got COVID. So not quite there yet, but he's a guy who, if you ask any Kings fan, what you're looking forward to seeing or what's going to have an impact on the team, everyone is like, it's Byfield time. Let's go.
Hopefully he's back in the lineup, sooner rather than later. I do want to see him get an extended look just because there hasn't been a big sample size yet, but I think the more games he plays, he's get used to the NHL really quick. At least for me, Sarah, this year I think no one saw Evan Rodriguez becoming a top 6 winger. And the best part is it doesn't even look like a fluke. His shooting percentage, it's a little higher, but his underlying numbers support him breaking out. He's one of the best players that controlled zone entries. Just a really nice fit also on the top power play. He kind of has that Jared McCann from last year where everything he touches turns to roses. And there was that one-timer last week against the St. Louis Blues with that wild comeback, and it was from the Ovechkin spot, and he did his best Alex Ovechkin impression there, and I was just like, okay, didn't know the greatest goal scorer of all time was on my team just now.
Right? Surprise.
He's been awesome. A lot of the signings over the offseason that Ron Hextall have worked out. I would say he's done a solid job. Danton Heinen, Brock McGinn's been really good since coming over from Carolina. And, just everyone has meshed well. Jake Gensel, he's been red hot all year. When he's not hurt, he's playing like the top 5 pure goal scorer in the league. Sarah, do you have anything else on this matchup here? I was going to ask for a prediction. Jason lost his when we did the crossover with him. I said 2-1 Penguins. I just didn't account for the 4 goals that they would score. I got the 1 right, though, so I'm going to take a half point there. But how do you think this game is going to go? And I am also very jealous that you get to go to that game.
So I did joke on Twitter earlier that like I was emotionally preparing myself for a Jeff Carter hat trick or something. I do think he scores tonight. I do think he scores against the Kings. I think it will be hilarious if it's the game winner. And lately I have been, every time I predict the Kings to win a game, they lose it. And vice versa. When I predict them that they're going to lose, they've been winning. So I'm going to go with that streak and say that they're totally going to lose this one. I'm going to, because this is my fantasy world, I say the Kings lose in overtime, like 3-2 to the Penguins, with Jeff Carter scoring the overtime game-winning goal because he's Jeff Carter. Because, yeah, if I say the Kings do good things, they embarrass me. So I'm just going to go with they blow it, and we'll see what happens.
It would just be poetic if the game actually does go to OT and then Carter gets the goal and he just
I feel it in my bones that he is going to, have a big impact on this game.
He's going to do something good, just like he did, to the Ducks on Tuesday. I nailed most of my predictions for that game. Somehow, I usually always lose those. I said getting Malkin would score in his return, and I said the Penguins would win the game. So I think the Penguins will win this one just because of how hot they've been. 11 out of 12. I think they'll make it 13. I think I'm also going to go with 3-2 final. I think it's going to be pretty close. I know some fans on the East Coast are not liking this just because the game is going to go to 1 a.m. I said it with Jason, Sarah. I love these late night games. I stay up till like 1 anyway, even though sometimes I work early the next morning. I'm just a late night owl. So when I can watch late at night, I'll do that and then some, especially in the playoffs. So I'm looking forward to.
There's nothing else to compete with. Like you're like, well, it's 10 o'clock at night. I'm just gonna watch hockey. What else is on? Like the news? No, hockey.
The news. If people have to make coffee or decaf coffee or something like that, go ahead. Have a great. And have a snack. It's going to be a good game. They'll go to San Jose after that, and then they'll go play Vegas, who just looks to be a buzzsaw this year as well.
Yeah,
Sarah, where can everyone find you on social media?
Sure. I am on Twitter at Right Said Sarah. It's WRITE, said Sarah with an H. Locked on Kings is at Locked on LA Kings. You can find me either place, largely frequently having feelings about Jeff Carter and other associated things. I feel like anytime he does anything, just look at my Twitter because everyone will have mentioned me in a tweet about it because that is the friends that I have. You can find Locked on Kings, of course, available wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're curious about just general Western Conference goings on, you can hear me on Wednesdays on Locked on NHL, which is our national show where we talk all about what's happening in the Western Conference.
And she will also do all caps Jeff when he does score a goal. So,
right. But when he scores against the Kings, it might be like lowercase with a sad emoji. But, I'm prepared. I'm ready.
All I remember in the playoffs was when he did keep scoring. The all caps came out. And
it was my heart.
It's been the perfect fit. But I'm excited to see you there. Excited to watch you go to the game. I definitely hope you somehow get a picture with him, like along the boards or something. That would be
acknowledge me.
Acknowledge me, yeah, literally. Awesome. And for Kings fans, I'm on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. The show's Twitter is at @LO_Penguins. And you can find the Locked on Penguins podcast wherever you get podcasts. And it's also on YouTube now as we continue to build towards the short-term goal of 100 subscribers. And then after that, we'll have some more lofty goals. But we got to go baby steps here. But that'll do it for this one. I hope you all enjoy the game, and we'll both be back, I'm sure, with episodes on Friday.